my usual spiel about being disabled and all of that stuff. My partner's working from her office today, so I have to keep an ear out for the post arriving. I'm going to do something I've never done before, and I don't know if I'm going to like it, but I'm going to take the headset off so I can hear properly. I don't know where I'm going to put it, because if I hang it where I usually hang it, it kind of blocks my keyboard. But I had it on so I could tell if the pre-roll sound was in sync, because I've had a couple of sync issues. So I'm just going to put my headset somewhere. Chat, I don't like this. I don't like not wearing it. It's horrible. I guess I could put it on my spare keyboard and it won't break it if it's just down there for an hour or two. So I'll be like, oh hey, there's the post, and go and get it as required. You shouldn't be able to hear the knock or the doorbell, but who cares if you can? But let's get the rest of it started. So if I have to stand up, that's why. I'll mute the mic so you don't have to hear me standing up and sitting down and all of that stuff. So so my name's Ryan. I am a fan. I'm not an official representative of Onyx Path. I'm just a fan with the platform. And as usual, I'm incredibly grateful to Onyx Path for giving me the chance to do this, to display how to write community content and to talk about just general GM tips for running games, for writing or running games. We are continuing with Trinity Continuum. We're continuing with Horrors of the Continuum. I'll do a recap and get into it in a moment. But I am disabled. I do experience muscle spasms that can affect any part of my body. So most particularly if it affects the muscles in my shoulders or neck, my head can kind of jerk from side to side, which can be disquieting. Or it can affect my my jaw, my throat, and my mouth, which makes speech difficult. And you probably already picked up on the fact that I have a slight stammer anyway. That's just because I'm anxious. The muscle spasms make it all the worse. So if that happens, I apologize. I can't control it, obviously. Not apologizing for being disabled, just apologizing for the fact that it makes things difficult sometimes. I do also struggle with multiple trains of thought, so I'll try to follow one to its natural conclusion before starting another, but I do check chat quite a lot, so if I'm looking down, I'm checking chat. And I will try to let you know that I've seen your question or your point or whatever, finish what I'm talking about, and then, go back to your point and discuss and answer it as appropriate. Okay, so as usual, as is my habit, as is my want, nay, need, best place to go for any information on Onyx Path are the meeting notes, being the notes of the weekly Monday meeting. They usually go up Monday evening, so like this week's went up 9:57 p.m. I assume Eastern. I don't know exactly. There's no time zone tag. But what's new this week with the Onyx Path? Well, the first thing to note is that the Werewolf 20th Anniversary Edition Apocalyptic Record Kickstarter went phenomenally well. Blew past a lot of stretch goals, so that's already good. Always good. Again, that's not a game line I have much experience with, but I know people out there really like and respect it. So I am incredibly happy for the team and everyone involved for that. That was a very corporate response. I'll wash my mouth out. Next Kickstarter, there's no date on it yet, but the next Kickstarter will be for Trinity Continuum Anima. Newest, I'm just going to quote from the Monday meeting notes. The newest of the TC core books and features a dual setting with the futuristic dystopian cyberpunk time period focused on the gleaming and perfect city of Cascade, combined with being able to play in Cascade's most popular virtual fantasy game world. So if you kind of want to look at isekai stuff, but from the perspective of both the person playing the game and the person in the game, that's rather than just reincarnated into a game. That's not the window I wanted to open. That might be the one for you. And then some grab bag news. Pretty much everyone that I've seen online is saying if you want to buy a book, order it now. I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but certainly if you're buying anything from Europe, anything printed in Europe, Europe's run out of paper to print books on for the foreseeable future. So if you want a book, buy it now. What else? If you haven't set your drive-through RPG account to receive emails from Onyx Path as a publisher for when they release new products, you can totally do that. Sometimes you get discounts and advance warning of things. And if we all want to celebrate a brief moment, 100 Devil's Night Parade, a sourcebook for Exalted 3rd edition, filled with scary monsters and super creeps, quotes, outsold for a quote glorious moment, the latest D&D release available on DriveThruRPG, which is incredible. So we should celebrate that. What's next? Trinity Continuum Aeon's getting a novella called Dawn. Scion Tales of Heroes is finally improving. It's a Scion anthology. It is the final stretch goal unlocked during the Scion 2nd edition Kickstarter, which was some time ago now. I want to say 3 years. I have the book. I can't bother to check. So that's pretty exciting. That'll be that campaign entirely finished. And then 2 releases this week. Dracula's Tomb Tasty Bit for They Came From Beyond the Grave. Sorry. They Came From Beyond the Grave! As with all Tasty Bits, it's just a small self-contained thing. As well as the advanced PDF for the They Came From Beyond the Grave Jumpstart. I can't be able to do the voice again. I do apologise. Sales-wise, there are 2 sales going on still. DriveThruRPG has its Halloween sale. As part of that, I would assume Chronicles of Darkness is discounted. If you are watching this and you did pick up the Chronicles of Darkness rulebook during the sale, or heck, you've just picked it up and you don't know what to do with it, specifically the core blue book, the Mortals game, I do have an introductory adventure on the Storyteller's Vault called the Radford Estate, that is designed to teach you how to play the game. But you do need the core rule book because it's community content, and I can't just include the rules. It's not a jumpstart. It is definitely an introductory adventure scenario thing. It's pretty short. It's pay what you want, so you don't have to pay for it if you don't want to, or you can't afford to. There's no judgment there. And I wrote it on stream. I think it's pretty good, if I do say so myself. As much as I, ever like hyping myself up. And Indie Press Revolution still has their half a ween sale going on. I see what they did there. It's pretty good, and I approve. That's if you want physical rulebooks usually. I think they're based in the US, so if you're non-US based, it might be a bit pricey on shipping. But hey, it's an expensive hobby. One more sales thing. If you pre-ordered the Mage 20th Anniversary Rich Bastard's Guide to Magic, the advanced PDF will be going out this week and should be on sale first week of November for everyone else. So get hyped for that. No Kickstarter, just soon. Trinity Continuum Anima. And then there's the usual links to podcasts as the schedule for this week. Please note the current StoryPath showcase is Dystopia Rising. So get hyped for that. There is a special shout out to A Rendezvous with Destiny being a high quality Scion podcast. Several Werewolf the Apocalypse games and that ran at a recent convention for Save Against Fear. And sorry, 1 second, I need to hydrate. Yeah, same thing as last time really. Astral has Trinity Continuum and Trinity Continuum Aberrant Jumpstarts. And Aeon Jumpstarts. If you are wanting to get into Trinity Continuum and have access to Astral as a virtual Astral tabletop. A note about Astral. It is... I believe the wording was that development has ceased on Astral. So they're still maintaining it. It's still perfectly usable as a virtual tabletop, but I think the marketplace is now closed for new assets, and they're shifting their subscription model slightly. So that's all good. Links to various system tabletop agnostic resources like token packs and things. Anything else? I don't think so. There was something I remember when I glanced at the project status timeline. I was like, I should talk about this on stream. And I can't remember what it was because I am absent-minded to a large degree. Nope, I can't remember what it was. Suffice to say, however, that the editing bottleneck is slowly shrinking as the editing team does an incredible job of getting the books through their processes for post-editing development. Trinity Continuum Assassins remains in post-editing development, as does the Adventure core book. Animas there still. Yeah. Ooh, even more hype. The anime Kickstarter art assets are happening, and interior art for Assassin is happening. So get hype for all of those. Anyway, that's the Monday meeting notes for this week. So let us get back after 15 minutes of waffle, 10 minutes of waffle. Let us get to the actual meat content of the stream. Meat content of the stream. Well, we are doing horror, so meat content in a stream would not be entirely off-brand. However, so what is, to recap for those who maybe weren't here last time, who haven't watched the video on demand, Trinity Continuum is a story path powered game, story path being Onyx Path's kind of in-house system. It bears some similarities to the Storyteller system powering World of Darkness games and Chronicles of Darkness and Exalted, but is very much its own thing. Trinity Continuum's core book allows you to run games mostly focused with modern day setting, but any game can be tweaked. But it's primarily kind of modern action games, or like spy, espionage kind of thing. What we are doing here is writing a horror supplement for Trinity Continuum Core, allowing you to inject a nice little horror element to your games. Last stream, there we go. I got there on the third try. Last stream I wrote about safety tools. That was it. I spent all stream talking about safety tools and writing out about safety tools and discussing the importance of safety tools in horror games. So if you have not seen that video on demand, that stream, please do. Regardless of the genre you are playing in, safety tools are incredibly important. I highly recommend you use them whenever possible. Just because it makes sure that everyone's on the same page, everyone knows what to expect, and no one gets triggered out of nowhere. They are always important on Stable Deus. So that was what I did. I wrote 1,000 words on safety tools. I've never written the introduction to one of these on stream before because I imagine, like most people, I write the introduction afterwards because I know what to discuss in the introduction then. But I felt it was important to discuss safety tools to set the groundwork for what is to come. So it is a horror supplement. There are obviously many different genres of horror. I'm not doing all of them. You can probably tell from the navigation pane on the left. In this supplement, we'll be dealing with body horror, cosmic horror, disaster horror, folk horror, and psychological horror. I'll give working definitions for each of them as we go because this is not just community content to be sold on the StoryPath Nexus. Sorry, itchy ear. I do also like to include... Obviously, I provide links to the videos in the final product to be like, hey, here's the design process. But in the body of the text, I also like to include design notes and kind of where I'm coming from and why I've made certain decisions. So I'll be explaining definitions, and I'll be explaining what each rules tweak or addition is intended to do and why and where possible or where necessary or where it occurs to me. It'll also be kind of, here's how you can tweak this, or how you can alter this, or here's a rule that this can replace if you don't want to double up on certain things. I'm not sure if that will happen because I haven't planned anything beyond the horror categories. So we'll see how it goes. We're on this journey together, chat. Also, a note on disaster horror before I get there. I've never really considered disaster movies horrific well, obviously they are, but I've never really considered them to be horror. So I'm less familiar with that genre of horror. I've got ideas, and I will probably purposefully expand its focus to allow me to include as many ideas as possible. But just be aware when I get to that point, there may be some mental gymnastics happening. Good. Okay, let's get started. So 1,000 words on introduction. Again, I'm going to say it a lot. If you're writing community content, getting your formatting correct as soon as possible is incredibly important. So I've already got my heading set up, and if you want to see how to do that, please watch the first stream. I'm not going to do it every time, but I've got my heading set up. All my different sections are set to different sections. So if I continue typing the introduction, body horror would then, and it went onto this page, body horror would just jump to the next page for formatting and layout purposes. It just saves time in the long run to get it done that way. Again, if you want to see how to do all that kind of thing, please watch the first stream. I'm not going to do it every time because I've already set it up. Okay, so ordinarily, I would not say this, but I went to Wikipedia for a source. What? Oh, that's the real horror. Wikipedia, if you're looking for information, Wikipedia can be very hit or miss. But for kind of general overviews of a subject, it's usually pretty good. Obviously, you have to take everything with a grain of salt because Wikipedia is edited by people with distinct biases, whether they're aware of them or not. And it has its own issues when you're citing it for academic sources, but for general background knowledge, it's a good source. So I'm just going to be using the Wikipedia definitions of the varying kinds of horror where applicable, because it means that there is a standard definition of horror that we can work from, and I don't see the point in reinventing the wheel if a definition already exists. So according to Wikipedia, and then because I'm academically trained, access 26/10/2021, body horror is, get rid of that, because it's a block of text, indent. All right, shift, nope, that's what I want to do. That's not what I want to do in the slightest. Why is Microsoft Word, you know what, I'll fix it in post. There is no post, there's just editing. According to Wikipedia, access at that date, body horror is a subgenre of horror that intentionally showcases grotesque or psychologically disturbing violations of the human body. These violations may manifest through aberrant sex, mutations, mutilation, zombification, gratuitous violence, disease, or unnatural movements of the body. Right. Unfortunately, my section breaks are. So if you ever haven't, so if you can see what my cursor's doing, I pressed enter just then, and it just went like 2 spaces forwards. Again, you can click the thing to see what your punctuation is doing, and it's just the section break is causing issues. There we go. That should have fixed it. So, obviously, I've mentioned that you shouldn't be traumatizing players through safety tool usage and consent checklists and all of that stuff. Did I mention tropes up here? You know what, let's just continue, and if I repeat myself, I repeat myself. This is community content. Obviously you shouldn't repeat yourself, but I don't have time to read the entire introduction right now, but I can reread it when I'm editing it. So according to Wikipedia, that's the definition of body horror that we're working with. When you are... More actions for post. Your scenarios by using the options provided below, as well as any additional rules, mechanics. Nope, that should be a comma. Etc. So that should be a comma because this is a clause. Sorry, I talk out loud about grammar a fair amount, just when writing. Let's get rid of this comma, otherwise it's just too many different clauses. In accordance with the options, I'll probably change that in post, with the options provided below, as well as any additional rules, mechanics, etc. Please bear in mind that body horror is one of the easiest forms of horror to accidentally include damaging tropes with. I failed this joke 3 times. Gosh dang it. Okay, so if I were Wizards of the Coast, that's where I'd leave it. Because that's where they did it. I'm not gonna, but that's what Wizards did. Use forms of horror to accidentally include damaging tropes with. Or in, I should say. Such things include reliance on disability, sexual assault, and that was the third point I was going to make here. That was it. Such mores from cultures other than your own. I am not saying you cannot include such things. I think many people realize just how easy it is to include body horror. Oh yeah, it's super easy. Cannot include horrific events that leave player characters disabled, or that mirror other cultural practices. You and your players should be aware of the Hey Ari, how you doing? What was I going to say? Gosh, my brain, it is melting out of my ears. Harm that can be done to, disabled people, or the harm that can be done by leaning on these tropes. If you wish to include them, please research them as thoroughly as you can. As well as securing player consent, because player consent is very important. So obviously I'm not an expert and I don't have sensitivity readers or anything, but I always try to be mindful of this as a disabled person myself, and we'll be returning to this in psychological horror as well. But as a disabled person myself, I'm very acutely aware of how unsettling my disability can be, and I'm not too proud. I will freely admit that when I was younger, disabilities scared me because they're so far out of the norm that I had no context for them, but I also didn't make fun of them or make fun of disabled people, laugh at disabled people. It's just, it's a learning process. And now, I don't, and people who watch my content on my Twitch channel, I've played a couple of horror games recently where I've been trying to point out the disabled tropes that really don't need to be in games anymore. And other tropes of a similar nature. Would sexism also be potentially valid to include here? Transformation can be a form of body horror. Yes, it would. I guess I could add it somewhere. Hang on. It's where scare and play extent to represent, portray them. It is also important to note that due to its how to phrase this. Also, because we're talking about necessarily complex subjects, please feel free to challenge me, call me out on anything I'm saying. I'm happy to learn and improve. I just want to be the best person I can be, While telling spooky stories. Or helping other people tell spooky stories in this instance. It is also important to note that due to its inherently personal nature, I do want to be the very best like no one ever was. Man, that's a lot of pressure though. I don't know if I want to be that anymore. The results of body horror, i.e. mutilation, scarring, physical transformation, etc. May or can present as things that I try to espouse wisdom. I try, not always very successful at it. Can present as things that I know what I want to say. How do I phrase it? Provoke prejudice. In the real world. And this prejudice should only be dealt with after obtaining player consent. As a side note, does that make sense? It is also important to note that due to its inherently personal nature, the results of body horror, i.e. mutilation, scarring, physical transformation, etc., can present as things that provoke prejudice in the real world, and this prejudice should only be dealt with after obtaining player consent. Does that make sense? Because not only are you moving on from the tropey, from the harmful trope section, the results of tropes. Cool. As a side note, because it is so personal, body horror should only be enacted upon willing player upon characters whose players are willing to deal with the consequences. If you have no players willing to do this, that is the purpose. If you have no players willing to do this, consider important NPCs. Consider using trivial NPCs because, and I'll explain this anyway, or SGCs, I guess, as it is unlikely that a player. See, that's another. I'm gonna build on the important NPC thing in a moment. Willing to see Yeah, if you have no players willing to do this, then don't. It is really the thing. But that's kind of like the whole shtick of the introduction. Altered, traumatized, subject to the specifics of this genre. They will be happy to see the same applied to SGCs. I'm going to reword this sentence. Don't worry about it. I know what I want to say. Are important to their characters. Consider using trivial SGCs or important SGCs unrelated to the PCs. I think it's trivial, right? I think that's how Trinity Continuum phrases it. I'm thinking like mooks and whatnot. Is there an antagonist section? There is. Oh, minor characters. Minor characters, not trivial. And it says someone who regularly plays a character with general shape-shifting with the ability to inflict such things upon others. Yes, of course. Should be, only be. As with all things, narrate the effects of this genre to your player's limits only when necessary and never beyond. So what I mean by that is, you know, some people are much happier with descriptions of body horror than other people, so you should never traumatize someone through your narration or description. But again, that's kind of the whole thing of this document. Comes from the fact that body horror isn't just what is done to PCs, but any character the player see on screen or hit described. Yes, exactly. The point I'm attempting to make here, and I don't know how well it's going, is that if you are going to inflict, you know, gratuitous violence or disability or a disease upon a character, it can be, if you want to make a big deal of it, then obviously, and the player characters don't want it to be done to them, then someone who is unrelated to their character but is still important that they have contact with. I should clarify that. Unrelated. Familial or through close interpersonal relationship. There we go. Because if I don't know where I was going with the first bit, but if important characters aren't affected by the thing, by whatever's happening, then obviously it kind of conveys the idea that whatever's happening isn't terribly important, unless it affects a large number of people. In which case, then you're kind of leaning into more shock than actual horror. For me, horror is always at its best, air quotes, when it's focused and not relying on, certainly for these genres, obviously there's various other, well, that's the horror, like the more people affected by it, the worse it is because of the nature of the genre. But for body horror, certainly, like it works best when it's a small number of things, a small number of people, being affected by a small number of things, whether zombification or disease or whatever. Play with someone who is not comfortable with this raw description of violence, body mutilation, or handle some of the descriptions. Otherwise, make because they get physically ill such descriptions. Yes, exactly. That is something that any player or story guide needs to be wary of. Gosh, this whole season of Behind the Screen is going to be extremely preachy. But that's my introduction to body horror, providing a working definition as well as some overview of tropiness and the effects of body horror on player characters. So my plan... so for those of you who do not know, Trinity Continuum breaks things down into a couple of things that we can mess with. So my plan is to have to try 2 rules that apply kind of scene-wide, 2 skill tricks. So skill tricks are ways that your character can use the skill in that other characters can't necessarily do. And then it was going to be 2 edges, which are the... Sorry. Specialized training. I got wind. I apologize. Specialized training or similar, or in other games they might be called merits that they have picked up or know. And then there is gifts, which are the more supernatural aspect that talents use if you're using talent characters as displayed in the core book. And I assume other books. I only have the core book. So all of these can obviously be used by player characters or antagonists as well. Safety related, please preach, since more people need to hear it. Hopefully. So let's just click here. So let's have scene mechanics. Let's just call it scene mechanics. That's heading 2. And you can see it in the navigation bar. It's indented to show it's a subheading. It's great. It's wonderful. And return. Okay, so apologize if the microphone picked up the water slurp. So my first thought is that a scene-wide mechanic for body horror will probably deal with the larger effects of body horror, a lot of which would be the visceral instinctive reaction to sight, smell, sound, maybe touch, depending on how things are going. So let's simply call this horrific overstimulation. Nope. There we go. No, that's a semicolon. That's the wrong punctuation. Bit of narrative to explain the thing, to explain what the mechanic's about. Due to the overwhelming effects of being in close proximity to sources of body horror, I guess. It's going to have a bit of a clinical narrative to it because it's generic. Some characters may have a physical reaction, even if they are not afflicted. This mechanic is based on sensory overstimulation. And affects all characters in a scene who would be affected by such. So if you've got a robot, they probably won't be affected by this because they process their senses in different ways. So let's think. So the obvious solution here is to add a complication to every role in the scene. Yes, I think we'll go with that actually. Hang on, does the game have any pre-existing terminology for this kind of thing, like hazards or whatnot? Please bear with me as I quickly scan the rulebook. I want zones, please. Oh, I'll also do some super science for each genre of horror as well, because the super science objects can be interesting. Okay, it wasn't there. You know what, let's just go to the index. That's what the smart people would do, and therefore is the last thing I would think to do. Field? I know Scion uses fields. Ooh. So there is conditions as well I had forgotten about. Yes, so this is field. That's what I thought. So this will actually be field, not scene. Action taken. In this field is subject to a, let's see, I also might set these to heading 3. Anyway, each action in this field is subject to a, let's say level 2 complication. If this complication is not brought off, the next action performed the difficulty of the next action performed is increased by 1. I hate putting numbers like that, but I'm pretty sure the book treats it like that. That's something I'll check in editing, but for now, I do have the rulebook open though. I do have the rulebook open. I'm pretty sure it uses the numerical value rather than writing it out. Give me, yeah, 2 difficulty, and it's written with the number 2 rather than the word 2. I should probably include how this affects mixed actions. I think that's the phrasing. Yes, mixed actions. Here we are. That doesn't help at all. Why would you do this to me? Mixed actions, if I recall, is you roll the smallest dice pool and apply that to the what you're trying to do. Yes, and each action you're trying to attempt has its own difficulty. That is what I thought. So we shall clarify. Go to the next action. performed is increased by 1. This increase applies to all actions performed in a mixed action. Hang on, I have the rulebook still open. Is mixed action capitalized or no? No. Difficulty of the next action performed by that character is increased by 1. In order to stop, well, actually, so I got one of two things I can do here. I can put in a sentence clarifying that horrific overstimulation only applies like every other action. So you roll, and if you don't pay it off, the next action is increased, has a difficulty increased, but also doesn't suffer from the complication, which just keeps things manageable. But realistically, the longer you spend in a situation like that, the worse its effects are going to be, and if you fail the roll, it becomes harder to resist it in the future, because you then have a higher difficulty action as well as still having to pay off the complication. You know what? Let's have that as let's do it as a variant. If this complication not bought off, the difficulty of the next action performed by that character is increased by 1. And that action is not subject to this complication. Variant. Indent. If you wish the scene to become overwhelming in terms of its effect on characters, to highlight how truly, I guess, horrific, right? I'm going to be using the word horrific a lot, I feel. How truly horrific these sites. Well, let's just say sensory input is. Sensory input is the complication applies to every roll, every action. You know what? Let's do it. Modify heading 3. Please black. Thank you. Bold. Why did that not appear there? Is it because it's the only heading 3? We'll find out. Nope. There we go. Okay, so that's how standing in a pool of blood and body parts can affect you. What else can we do with body? I guess the fear of body horror. So a lot of the time, body horror is enacted through touch, right? Zombification is the bite. Gratuitous violence is invariably slasher movies. So it'd be getting close to people, touching them. At arm's length. Why is that not? Please? That was very strange. You know what? I think it looks better like that. Just add a space there. No, maybe not. So at arm's length. There's no random space there. Unwilling to risk themselves, to risk their health and well-being. Many characters will not approach others during periods of intense paranoia is not the right word. Suspicion. I'll include a design note here about what this is all about, but so we've got reflexive actions I can mess with, because movement's usually like a reflexive thing in action scenes. Action tabs and sequences, there we go. Reflexive actions. Talking, glancing around. Maybe not. Maybe I have misspoken. Moving and maneuvering. To refer to the precise speed at which the character can move to be relevant. In most cases, the odds of abstraction, athletics, change range bands. Okay. Whenever a character who is unaware of the exact source of the, I'm just going to say body horror in this scene, and then add a description, clarification a bit further up. Is unaware of the exact source of the body horror in this scene. Wishes to move closer to another character or any other reasonable source of body horror. Reasonable source of the body horror. They must attempt a mixed action. To do so. The player may suggest any combination of skill plus attribute. That's the wrong way around, right? It's attribute plus skill. Curses. Attribute plus skill to overcome their natural hesitance. Yeah. This part of the action has a difficulty of no more than, let's say 3, but should be determined on a case by case basis depending on what the source of body horror looks like. Looks like how the character feels about the source. Source and similar factors. The movement part of the action, of the mixed action, has a difficulty of 1. I don't think difficult terrain increases difficulty, but I could be wrong about that. Complicated terrain is increased complications. has an appropriate difficulty, let's just say. The rulebook's guidance is mostly its difficulty of 1, but can be higher. Unwilling to risk their health and well-being, many characters will not approach others during periods of intense suspicion. Whenever a character who is unaware of the exact source of the body horror in the scene wishes to move closer to another character or any other reasonable source of the body horror, that should be a subordinate clause, they must attempt a mixed action to do so. The player may suggest any combination of attribute plus skill to overcome their natural hesitance. This part of the action has a difficulty of no more than 3, but should be determined on a case-by-case basis depending on what the source of the body horror looks like, how the character feels about the source, and similar factors. The movement part of the mixed action has an appropriate difficulty. Grand. So I need to include, because I'm going to be using that as shorthand, I guess. You know what? It'll be in the it'll be at the end of the introduction. This document will refer to the source of horror throughout. It is simply a shorthand way of providing a focus for mechanics. References the most likely source of any horrific feelings. Acts or similar in a scene. For example, a zombie chasing a PC is the source of horror. As is the suspected slasher. The potentially infected adult. Or the unsettling child who never blinks. So I'll just rephrase this to source of horror. Get rid of the word body. If you are planning on including any shorthands like that, it's always useful to do it to define them as soon as possible, so that people know what to look for, rather than having to flick through a document. Okay, so that's 2 scene mechanics. I'm doing them in order of presentation in the rulebook, so it's not going to be alphabetical, which really upsets my brain. But there we go. Skills. So body horror obviously lends itself to medicine skills. So let's do at least one, probably 1 medicine and 1 science skill. Existing medicine skills. Once per scene can make a roll to examine a character and diagnose illness. Anytime they know about enemy's medical condition or history, or momentum. Okay, so walking wounded kind of does what I wanted it to do. Sorry, these are skill tricks, not skills. What am I doing? Hang on, I have an idea. Just need to refresh what these yeah, that's whatever. I need to check the wording on something. Please do bear with me. Yes. Yes. All up in there. And then these do have little narrative things. Yes. The character knows just what parts of the body are absolutely necessary. If you are ever stuck for how to spell the word necessary, by the way, I always remember it as 1 cup and 2 sugars for 1 C and 2 S's. Just what parts of the body are absolutely necessary for continued... we'll just leave it at that, actually. Character with this skill trick. It's a May, right? Character with this skill trick can perform crude surgery with little to hand. I just need to think about how to phrase this. Spend 1 momentum to remove a bruised or injured injury condition. Is condition capitalized or lowercase? Complication, sorry, not condition. Capitalized because it's complication. Right, oops, a daisy. I was in the wrong document when I started typing. It went everywhere. Please minimize. Thank you. So I guess I should talk about what I'm talking about. So in Trinity Continuum, rather than having hit points, you have injury conditions. Your attributes, your stamina, sorry, determines how many you have. But you start with all characters have 1 bruised, 1 injured, 1 maimed injury condition. And then once they are filled in, you take a complication to the to any role that injury condition would apply to. So if you got shot, say, but it only applied a bruised injury condition, that could be a grazed shoulder. So any action that grazed shoulder would impact on, so throwing a punch with that arm or physical labor, any roll that you make as part of that suffers from the complication for having a bullet graze. So that's what that is. You may spend 1 momentum to remove a bruised or injured complication, not complications. From any character in the scene, except yourself. You know what? I'm going to clarify that up here so I don't have to write it out a couple of times. This skill trick applies to any character except yourself. Every character, sorry. To every character but you, any character except yourself. I'm getting caught up in the minutiae of language again. Anyway, to remove a bruised or injured complication. If you do, the character who suffered from that complication suffers that complication on all they are just called physical attributes, right? The arenas. I think it's just physical arena. Yes. I'm just doubting myself, overthinking things. If you do, the character who suffered from that complication chooses a physical attribute. And I need to reword this so I can use suffered over here. If you do, the character whose complication you have removed. Haha! You chooses a physical attribute and suffers that complication on all. I'll just put rolls for now. On all rolls containing that attribute. Until they would have naturally healed. Until that attribute would have, until that complication would have been healed. You may spend 2 momentum to remove a maimed complication, or let's do this from it's taken out, right? I'm doubting myself so much today, and I do not know why. I'm pretty sure it's taken out. Yes, it is. You know, I'm gonna do this for parity. Through the character whose condition you removed, the physical attribute suffers the associated complication. And all rolls contain that until that condition would have been healed. You may spend 2 momentum to remove a maimed or taken out condition. With the latter being replaced by a maimed condition. Because whilst I'm fully open to you doing emergency surgery on someone who is maimed, being taken out should have some repercussion, if possible. But if you're just waking them up and they're already maimed, that's fine. With the latter being replaced by a maimed condition, if possible. If you do, again, the character whose condition you remove chooses a physical attribute of the associated complication on all rolls containing that attribute until. I don't know why I capitalized character. I could not tell you that. His condition you removed chooses a physical attribute of the associated complication on all rolls containing that attribute until. I'm just going to mimic the game's wording here. That character reaches a story milestone. So this is a long-term traumatic injury that is healing very slowly. There are rules within the game for healing, don't get me wrong, but as this is kind of interrupting that side of things by giving you like horrific scars and whatnot, I feel that it's fair to break away from that. Any conditions removed by this trick leave scars, deformities, or other physical reminders of the event which caused them. Oh, that was the door. Okay, I'm just gonna go and grab the door. I'll be
People of Cascade, it is time for you to wake up and realize the truth of the city you live in. Neither the FSA nor Fulgur Tech care about you. The brain implant Cascade gives you for free is just a leash on your mind. Where you see a new beginning of the horribly aberrant war, Fulgur Tech sees a chance to control you when you're at your weakest. And this video game, Terror Surge, is only part of their plan. Last year alone, in 2083, nearly 90% of the citizens in Cascade have played it. It's an addiction, not an escape. Don't you see it's nothing more than a new opiate for the masses? We need to...
Well, thank you. I try. It wasn't actually for me either. It was for the neighbours. So that really, really sucks. Yeah, I was racking my brains how to fit that promotional material into the stream, and that was the best I came up with. So enjoy. I think I did decently well. I don't know. It's because this isn't a natural play. It was really awkward to figure out. But I genuinely am actually waiting on parcels. That wasn't a ploy. I literally am. You know, we decided to get the Christmas shopping started early, and no, it was for next door, so that was great. I was hoping it would happen, and it did. If not, I was just going to run it at the end of the stream, be like, "Oh, hey, look, something's happening. Oh no." Anyway, I'm out of breath from being grossly unfed. More water and continue. Right, so that's one skill trick. I should probably indicate what skill that goes with. All up in there. Right. I feel like science. I feel like science is the way forward here. What are the science? What are the science tricks? I'm making stuff, doing complex systems and codes, and inventing stuff. Oh, right. Let's just... It is tropey in and of itself. So I'll see what people feel about this one. Science. Rational mind. Heading 3. Okay, so you can just activate it to do the thing. Cool. Okay. Presented with the horrors of the world, some people retreat into the cool comfort of scientific orderliness. Obviously not quantum physics, but you can't really describe that as orderly, so... Is that it? I've never actually had to spell that word out. I've never had to spell that word before, so ooh, I got it. Let's just put order. There we go. There's I think it's integrity, right? Yes. So what's the language? Just before making, before rolling. Yes. For rolling an integrity roll to resist the effects of others, or I guess compulsions of others. resist the compulsions of others. 2, maintain your composure in the face of true horror. Or to simply keep your cool whilst everything around you falls to chaos. You may activate this trick to add. At this point, I'm just copying one of the existing tricks and changing words. To add dice equal to your science skill to the roll. Okay, so there we go. 2 new tricks. So medicine all up in there. I guess I'll include a design thing here. Oh, hang on, I'm in Word already. I can just do the thing. Excellent. So this trick is intended to reflect the character performing rushed surgery in the heat of the moment by tying arteries closed. Splinting broken bones with whatever is available. And otherwise rapidly fixing injuries now for a slower healing process later. Nope. What am I doing? This is what I'm doing. And you know what? I should put that up here so it's clearer what it refers to. I don't think Rational Mind needs that explanation, but all up in there is more of an abstract thing. Oh, right. Normal. Okay, so 2 scene mechanics, 2 skill tricks. Next on the list, I believe, would be edges. So again, edges, oh no, wrong heading. Edges are what other games might term merits, or knacks, I guess, and represent more unique, specialized training than skill tricks would, do. So I guess this would be, there's got to be a physical edge somewhere. So let's one of these has to be physical. It's body horror, right? It has a core physical component, without which it would be a different kind of horror. So let's, as with the skill tricks. So what I'm trying to do, certainly in this section, what I'm trying to do is have it so that one option is engaging with the horror and kind of you're actively worsening the situation, and the other option is falling back from it, using other resources to deal with the horror of the situation. Because that's how some people are. Some people will run headfirst into it, and some people will back away from it. And that's what I'm trying to get across. I might add words to that effect. I might not. But these edges, I definitely want to be more horror focused in a way. And as I said, I will likely do, if not, it won't be a complete scene by scene scenario, but it'll be like, hey, here's a scene breakdown of a potential one shot, and then kind of overview of each scene with a handful of associated characters for people to build onto for use in their games to for the genres. Anyway, so mutation. It's got to be mutation. But let's have it as controllable mutation. Controlled mutation. By taking a moment to focus, you can alter your body in minor but noticeable ways to provide a variety of beneficial effects. So, do any of these edges require momentum expenditure? No, edges don't seem to generally require that. I just wanted to check. Okay, let's see. As an action, difficulty will come later, don't worry. You may attempt to do one or you may attempt to do any number of the following. Move an attribute dot from one attribute to another. Lower the complication from an injury condition. One stage by one stage. Let's have a third one. I like working with threes. Let's look at the character sheet for inspiration. I'm not really feeling skills. Facet might work. Oh, armor, right. Grant yourself an additional point of be soft armor. And add a are tags capitalized? Again, I'll explain this stuff in a moment. I'm just wanting to write things down. I think tags are capitalized when the word tag is encountered in the text. I could be wrong. Nope, I'm wrong. Add an additional tag. I think it's just called unarmed attacks, right? Yeah. And then bullet point. The difficulty of this action is equal to the number of effects you wish to achieve, I guess. It's equal to 1 plus the number of effects you wish to achieve. And the effect lasts until the end of the scene. which point you gain the injury condition fatigued in your lowest possible. I'm going to reword this. Don't worry about it. That's fine. You gain the condition fatigued, your lowest possible injury condition. Okay, so let's break down what this does, I guess, for those who do not know such things. So I've touched on actions and mixed actions. Actions are things you would roll dice for. You form your dice pool, you roll, target number of 8 for most characters, and 8, 9, 10 success, etc., etc. With successes, you buy off difficulties. If you buy off all the difficulty of a roll, you've succeeded. Woo! Sometimes you can. I touched on this last time as well, but as a recap, some actions will have a complication associated with them that just give you usually a negative effect to succeeding, unless you can also buy off the complication. So there's that. Actions, I mentioned mixed actions earlier. Mixed actions, you roll the smallest dice of like 2 or more actions, I guess. And you calculate your dice pool for each of those actions. You roll the smallest dice pool, and then you use the successes from that dice pool to buy off the difficulties and complications of each of the things you're trying to attempt. So when I've said as an action here, that can be included as part of a mixed action, for example. But I've just said that because it's not a mixed action in and of itself, nor is it reflexive. Reflexive actions being stuff you can just do, like look around or speak, things like that. But so move an attribute dot from one attribute to another, it is what it sounds like. You can move an attribute, a point from intellect to stamina if you wanted to. All dice pools are composed of a skill plus an attribute plus sometimes other things. This just allows you to shift one attribute to another attribute. It is what it is. Lower the complication from an injury condition by 1 stage. I've already touched upon that, but so that would be from maimed to injured to bruised to nothing, but it does have a duration to the effect. Grant yourself an additional point of soft armor. So armor in Trinity Continuum comes in 2 different variations. There is soft armor and there is hard armor. Hard gives you 1 additional injury condition box. There's no complication associated with it. Sorry. It gives you 1 or 2 depending on what rank of hard armor it is. But it gives you 1 or 2 additional injury condition boxes. Those boxes have no complication associated with them because they're just the armor standing up to the damage in place of you. Soft armor increases the difficulty of the inflict damage stunt by 1. So attacking a character in an action scene requires obviously dice rolling. It's an action. And then with the successes you get from that action, you purchase, they're called stunts, things like inflict damage or shove or grapple. But inflict damage is kind of the go-to stunt, and it applies the lowest possible injury condition onto the target, if it has conditions. If it just has health, it just does 1 damage to it. You can also do a critical, which does a second injury condition or deals 2 points of damage. But the inflict damage stunt is what most people will go for in combat, and soft armor increases the difficulty of that stunt by 1. So essentially, you're increasing your defense roll by 1, which can make a big difference. And then additional tag to your unarmed attacks. So weapons in Trinity Continuum and Storypath in general, actually, are constructed from a handful of tags. So as an example, an unarmed attack, it deals blunt damage, would you expect? Damage type rarely factors into anything, but it has the melee, grapple, and warn tags. So a breakdown of what those mean, just as a practical example. Melee is a handheld weapon. Would you believe? Grapple tag. The weapon is small, requires a limited range of motion, or is otherwise easy to use when grappling with an opponent, so you can still use it while you're using the grapple stunt. And then worn is, you know, it's strapped to or worn on your body in some way. You can't be disarmed of it. And then on top of that, you can, as I say, gain an additional tag to unarmed attacks. So you could add the heavy weapon tag to it to increase your scale by 1, which gives you extra enhancement to automatic successes to rolls, or the brutal tag, which reduces successes necessary for the critical stun by 1. So you can beef your punches up, basically, is what I'm guessing at. But it's going to look noticeably odd because you are physically mutating your body, which is, you know, body horror. So that's one edge. I think, like, it is an inherently physical genre of horror is the thing. So I might just go with the second physical edge. Again, I want to lean into the horror aspect here. It feels weird still not wearing the headphones. Also, this will have to be the last one because I'm running out of time. So, the only other thing I've got is like some kind of armor, but that is already covered in the rules by one of the physical edges, I believe. Yes, tough cookie. You always have a soft armor rating of 1. Oh, I need to assign dots to it as well. I would say that this, instinctively, I feel like this is a 3-dot edge. Because it's quite a powerful effect. Should I go with something like Altered Anatomy? And then you can, when you purchase the edge, you can choose from a variety of effects, and you can purchase the edge multiple times. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do this as a 2-dot edge because of some of the things I have in mind for it. Whether through accident, design, or experimentation, your biology no longer conforms to expectations. You may purchase, let's say, this edge twice, and may choose a different effect from the list below each time. Let's just say from the following list. So let's have so the obvious one is you no longer need to breathe, whether through fused lungs, gills, or similar or alternative organs. You no longer breathe as other people do. You may either gain +2e to enhancement. I should write this out fully. You may either gain +2 enhancement to any rolls to resist airborne toxins or contagions, or you may breathe underwater. So it's different breathing. I don't want to just replicate Tough Cookie, so if we were going to do Tough Cookie, we'd have to do +1 armor, +1 soft armor and something. Oh, I guess you could just have 1 hard armor. Yeah, why not? Skin is unnaturally dense, covered in an exoskeleton, or otherwise armored. You have you know what? I'm just going to copy the wording from Tough Cookie, except I'm going to replace soft armor with hard armor. You always have a hard armor rating of at least 1, sorry. Even when not wearing any armor, and may add this armor rating to the value of any armor you wear. That changes the meaning very, very differently. Should hard be capitalized? Oh, apparently not. Interesting. So that should be there's going to be drawbacks to this, don't worry, and obviously these are visible changes to your body. So traditionally, I guess the other option would be a movement, additional option for movement, whether gliding or swimming or like spider climbing. What else can we do? Also, this should be 1 word. I put the W in the wrong place. End my streaming career right now. That's just word messing up. You make this choice when purchasing this edge and may not choose the second option. I may not choose the other option with your second, a second purchase of this edge. Like, you either breathe underwater or you're just better at resisting toxins. You don't get both. I think the movement option maybe. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's see. Webbed hands and feet, additional limbs, or lighter than normal bones allow you to move in unnatural ways. When you purchase this edge, you know what, I'll just do what I did up with the first one. You gain +3 enhancement. Oh no, it's the additional C there. Whoops. Enhancement when swimming or climbing or no, we'll just have when swimming or climbing. You make this, and then just copy this with this wording, boom, and then as with before, we will do a little, turn that into a bullet pointed list for. Oh right, that's what happened there. That needs to be separated. And then pull that up there. This edge produces visible aberrant biology. And its effects. Let's see, and attempts to disguise its effects are, let's say, have a difficulty of at least, and then I think 3 is a good number, but I'm just going to check the recommendations for difficulties. Where I think there's a table of like, hey, these are hard rolls, these are easy rolls, etc., etc. Absolutely not. Let's just provide a rule of thumb. Have a difficulty of at least 3. So gills, you could try to cover it with a scarf, but it might slip at an inopportune moment. So there we go. Okay, so today I have written an additional nearly 1,500 words. So that's pretty cool. Defined body horror. Wrote some rough guidance about tropes and how not to include them, rather than just saying don't. I still can't believe that happened. As well as the potential consequences of the effects of body horror that can be dealt with at the tabletop. 2 scene mechanics. 1 dealing with the sensory input of a body horror filled situation, and the other dealing with the suspicion of you could be infected, bitten, you could be the perpetrator, etc. 2 skill tricks. 1 representing the engagement with body horror by using it for your own purposes, by reaching into someone's body to tie up a loose artery or splinting their bones for short-term gain, as well as a skill trick for taking a step back, for taking a moment to calm yourself and to fall back onto established patterns of science. And then 2 edges, both of which engage with body horror quite physically, literally. As I said, it's a very physical genre of horror. 1 where you can just mutate yourself, and 1 where you are already mutated for a benefit of some kind. These are all obviously subject to change, so it's not the final form that these mechanics, tricks, edges, and next stream we'll move on to gifts and super science. It's not the form that they'll take, but it's good enough right now. So if you did want to sit through any of this again, or you came in at the end and you kind of want to see the design process or my thoughts on why I'm doing certain things, the video on demand is exclusive for to subscribers on the Twitch channel for I think a week, 6 days or 6 or 7 days. I've seen conflicting information. At which point it will be live on the Twitch channel, and I will upload it sometime around next Tuesday to my personal YouTube channel, where it will go in a playlist after the first episode of the season for later viewing. If you have an Amazon Prime account and you have not yet done so, you can link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account to get a Prime Gaming account. And with that Prime Gaming account, you get 1 free subscription a month, which you can use on any channel you wish. Has all the same benefits for both you and for the streaming or for the channel as a normal tier 1 account. So don't worry that Onyx Path won't get everything that they're due. They will. The next episode of this show This show runs bi-weekly, so the next episode of the show would be the 9th. As far as I'm aware, that's still... oh, no, that is not happening. I'm going to the zoo for my birthday. So the next episode for the show will be the 23rd of November, so almost a month away. In the meantime, I will be streaming on my own channel. I will be posting my own thoughts on a variety of topics, usually relating to video games or TTRPGs. Both my Twitch channel and my Twitter account are Comrade Bubbles. If you do have any lingering questions, feel free to follow me on either of those platforms. I do answer questions as best I am able. But let's do that recap of the Monday meeting notes for people who weren't here at the start. Where did that shortcut go? There we go. So, swift recap of the Monday meeting notes before going into the post-roll. The Werewolf the 20th Anniversary Edition Apocalyptic Record Kickstarter ended with a bang. I checked and I think it was $93,000 or something like that, which is incredible. The next Kickstarter will be Trinity Continuum Anima. So look for social media posts from Onyx Path regarding that. That is, again, quote, newest of the Trinity Continuum core books and features a dual setting with the futuristic dystopian cyberpunk time period focused on the gleaming and perfect city of Cascade, combined with being able to play in Cascade's most popular virtual fantasy game world. But the Onyx Path social media channels will be sharing more information about that going ahead. I also suspect, as is the norm, that there will be actual plays on this very channel to promote that once the Kickstarter is running. So keep an eye out for that as well. Again, I mentioned this at the start, but for people who perhaps not there for that, there is a huge problem with paper shortages at the minute. Certainly, I've seen reports indicating that Europe is out of printing paper for the foreseeable. So if you do want to order any books, do so as soon as possible for anything, not just Onyx Path. Any books you want to get them as soon as possible. Otherwise, you may have to wait quite some time to get them. On top of usual shipping delays, seasonal shipping delays and all of that stuff. If you're interested in Exalted 3rd Edition, 100 Devil's Night Parade came out. That's a book of monsters and antagonists for Exalted 3rd Edition. And the advanced PDF temporarily outsold the latest D&D release available on DriveThruRPG. I do not know what that is. If you're into Trinity Continuum Aeon, you may be excited to hear about the novella coming out. It's called Dawn, so that's really cool. And also a anthology of Scion-inspired fiction, Tales of Heroes, is coming out as the last stretch goal to be completed for the Scion 2e Kickstarter. Those of you less interested in Trinity Continuum Scion, but still interested in Story Path, They Came From Beyond the Grave has a tasty bit and a jumpstart coming out this week, so that's pretty cool. DriveThruRPG's Halloween sale still continues, as does Indie Press Revelations' Halloween sale. Reminder, as I said at the start, if you do pick up the the core Chronicles of Darkness rulebook, I have a free, or pay what you want, introductory adventure available on the Storyteller's Vault, the Radford Estate, that will walk you through, that will gradually introduce mechanics and is, I hope, a decent spooky story as well to see you through the dark time of the year. I think I estimated it would take maybe 2 or 3 sessions to finish, so it's not terribly long. If you're interested in Mage the 20th Anniversary Edition, the Rich Bastard's Guide to Magic Advanced PDF is going out this week if you pre-ordered it, and should be for sale first week of November. Pause for breath. Then's the schedule, which will be shown in the post-roll. The usual link to actual plays, podcast appearances, and all of that good stuff. And I think really that's it. Yes, that's really it. So, what's wild, Ari? While I hydrate. Wow, that took a lot of breath. Okay, so I think that's it. As I say, if you have any lingering questions, you want to talk anything through, I can be found on Twitter. Oh, the paper shortage? Yeah, it's incredible. And really upsetting. So we found start of like half of the year has been cargo shipping issues, or more than half the year has been cargo shipping issues in the industry. And then as we wrap up the year, there's just a paper shortage. Yeah, yeah, so if you have any lingering questions, please do feel free to follow me on Twitter and Twitch at Comrade Bubbles. Well, obviously Twitch is just Comrade Bubbles, but you get my feeling. You get my point. I will see you maybe in a month's time. I do apologise, but birthdays happen. And all that remains, I guess. Does anyone want to watch the hacker video again? If you want, I can queue it up. If not, I'm just going to go straight to the post roll, and you can enjoy the sweet promotional graphics demonstrating what else is coming on the channel this week. Regardless, I'm going to end the YouTube recording here. So all that is left from me is for me to say to you and your loved ones, please do stay safe, please do stay healthy, please do stay wholesome, and please, if you ever have any criticism of this show, please feel free to let me know. Especially talking about something like this where I could trigger people without meaning to. I really don't want to do that. So if I have touched on something and you think there's a better way I can handle it, feel free to let me know through any of the methods I've said. I also do lurk on the Onyx Path Discord server as well, so you might see me post there from time to time in response to any pertinent things. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next time, and please do enjoy the post roll. As is my wont, I'll let it run through a couple of times and then sign off. So have a good one.